Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of my Amplifying Melanated Voices in the Community series. Today I am joined by Ryan Bonaparte, and he owns and runs a small business called Remix Waffles based locally. And I'm so excited to sit down and have this chat with him. Hi Ryan, welcome.
Hi, Tina. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's jump into it. Tell us a little bit about Remix Waffles, how it started, and what your vision is about it.
Sure. So Remix Waffles was something I created because, honestly, it started out just as a fun project. I had a lot of people who, I'd come over to my house and say, "Oh, let's have some dinner." And it's like, I love waffles. Like, let me make you some
Sure.
waffles.
Uh-huh.
And then from there, it just kind of grew into this idea of I wanted to share waffles and everything related to cooking at home and the benefits of cooking at home with people beyond just my direct network.
Awesome. And so I'm sure there was lots of taste testing to get to the right waffle. And I know that I've had your waffles both made by you and packaged in my own house and made by me. So what was the process behind that? What consisted of your perfect waffle?
So if you ask my wife, she'll tell you that there was a lot of testing, a lot of late nights of me coming home after work and saying, "Oh, hey, I try this new batch," and I would just give it to her blindly and say, "Try this and give me your feedback." And it took a couple of months of just eating a lot of waffles, trying a lot of different ratios of flour and cornstarch, sugar,
Yeah.
salt, baking soda, baking powder, just trying to hone in on what it was that I thought was great, and having folks along the way tell me what they thought about it.
Sure. And you just recently came out with the gluten-free one as well, right?
Yes, yes. So when I first came out with the original waffle mix, it was, it's a wheat flour based
Hmm.
mix, and the first question I would get is, "Oh, do you have a gluten free option?" And
Sure.
I had tried gluten free waffles before. Hadn't liked any of them,
Right.
and so I was kind of hesitant. I was like, that's something I want to do, but I really want to make sure I do it right. And then
Hmm.
after getting established with the original mix, I thought, let's really try and nail the gluten-free
Sure.
waffle, and I think we did.
Yeah, they're pretty good. And as someone who, doesn't have to abide by a gluten-free diet, um, they're really good, I have to say.
Well, thank you. I like them. I debate on which one I like more, which to me means I've succeeded in
Yeah,
in my goal there.
for sure. Um, so how do you see Remix Waffles connecting with your community, both locally and on a broader scale?
So when I think about waffles, it's not something that you immediately think of as being, a way of connecting with the community, but really what it's about is helping people cook for themselves and for their families.
Hmm.
And so for those people who, I know who say, "Oh, I love waffles," or maybe I just love cooking, I love eating.
Yeah.
To me, it's a way of saying, okay, here's a way that you can, have a mix that doesn't have any additives in it. And
Hmm.
you can spend time with your family. You can spend time with your friends. You can, uh, you know, use this as a way of working, um, with others around you and being fun.
Hmm.
So, for example, I've used it as a nice opening for one of the a nonprofit board that I am the treasurer on, and so we every before the pandemic, every board meeting, we'd start off with a little bit of having waffles and getting to know each other a little bit more, and uh, it was a nice way to start what would
Yeah.
otherwise be potentially a little dry meeting.
I mean, I feel that food in general is such a great way to connect with others. Whether you're sitting down at a
Yeah.
table together or talking about food or um, watching shows about food, it's a really great way to kind of connect to each other and other cultures too. So I really like that aspect of, whether you're cooking together as a family or cooking for friends. I like that concept of doing more for yourself. So that's really cool. And you you mentioned the pandemic, so let's go right into that. Um,
Yeah.
so it's been going on for a little over 3 months now, and obviously it's affected us all in different ways. So I'd like to kind of hear from you how you've been doing, both personally and on a business level.
Um, the easy one to start with is on a business level. I think it's had this weird impact for Remix. So on one hand, being able to cook at home is a big part of what people are doing right now. So there's a lot of
Mhm.
interest from that side.
Sure.
On the other hand, I was in the middle of talking to a couple of different folks who were looking at purchasing large orders of Remix for kind of company events, and
Sure.
that just completely stalled. And so that was a little challenging, because to me it was a way of kind of taking Remix to the next level, being
Sure.
able to introduce it to a number of people. But we adapt. Folks are really interested in cooking at home and learning about the brand, and they have more time to kind of research things online. So all that is still very, very positive.
Mhm.
Um, as far as personally, I mean, it's a weird balance.
Sure.
Both my wife and I are fortunate that we still have our jobs,
Mhm.
and that we're able to work from home.
Right.
But we do have a 1-year-old, and she is quite a handful. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a challenge to balance those aspects and still
Mhm.
have a business to run and time for ourselves and to rejuvenate. But we're making it work, and we're in a very fortunate place compared to a lot of other people.
Sure. That's great. Um, it's great to see that. I mean, it's always hard, I think, to find a balance in general when this kind of thing were to happen. And then when you add kids to that mix, it's a whole other ball game. But so great that you're both in a good place and you're making it work, because that's important. Um, my main reason for doing this series was to uh, highlight Black and Brown voices in our community, and that was or has been always important to me. But currently, we're going through civil rights movement in and of itself, and um, I really wanted to make sure that we also touch on that, because I think it's important when we're having this conversation, and to kind of get your thoughts behind what's going on, and kind of looking ahead, what you potentially see happening, and um, what that's done for your business, if anything.
Yeah, so um, it is a really tough time. I think there's there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of people who are trying to figure out what the best way to move forward is. And
Sure.
you know, as a Black man, a lot of the issues that are coming up are not new to me.
Hmm.
Whether that's police brutality, whether that's
Right.
systemic racism. These are all things that unfortunately have been a part of my life for as long as I can remember.
Hmm.
Um, I've never been the victim of police brutality, and I'm you know very fortunate and glad to see that, to be able to say that. But that doesn't mean that it hasn't happened, and that it isn't a concern of mine. So
Hmm.
there are definitely times where I take actions, whether it's I get pulled over for a speeding ticket, and I'm super careful. Like I doesn't happen very often. I think maybe twice in my life, but I remember the last time actually wasn't even speeding. It was I had an expired registration sticker,
Okay.
and the police officer pulled me over. He was very nice and very kind. But I remember this was about 2 or 3 years ago, and I had like, my
Hmm.
hands on the wheel, and he came
Right.
up and he said, license and registration. And I was like, my license is in, my right back pocket. And I was like really deliberate about explaining exactly what I was doing. And
Right.
he was fine. It was a very respectful experience, and he just said, make sure you get your the sticker updated, and um, that was. But even still, like you go into that with this kind of sense of, I hope this doesn't turn out to be something really, really bad, because
Right.
what we're hearing about now is not new. Even though this was a few
Correct.
years ago, that was still very prevalent in my mind then, and it's prevalent in my mind
Hmm.
now. Um, I think what I'm really, honestly, what I'm really hopeful about is how large the conversation has become and how ingrained in various elements of our society it's become. Because
Right.
in previous, unfortunately, if you think back to kind of the George Floyd incident,
Mm-hmm.
and the words "I can't breathe" were there. That's not a new phrase.
Right.
This is exactly what was said before, years ago.
Right.
And when I but the difference is that now people are actively engaging in conversation. I've had so
Mm-hmm.
many conversations at my current employer. We've done a ton of discussions, both from the highest, the CEO, and all the way down to anyone in the company has been part of these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that it's going through that process is something that's making me very hopeful. I think one of the other things that stands out to me about what's going on right now is that it's in the middle of a variety of other things that are going on. So obviously we have the pandemic, that's
Right.
important. Um, we have uh, an election year in the U.S., and so there are things that maybe it's the perfect storm, or maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
something where basically we're saying, hey, this is a time when we really need to have these conversations and be truthful and honest and open with people, and say
Absolutely.
this is where we need to be in terms of being able to um, have a real meaningful conversation.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, I know that there's a news cycle and that people will be talking about this for a little while, and then some people will just say go on to the next thing.
Sure.
That's just the way it is. But hopefully, it's more than just that.
Yeah, I agree. I think I have a cross between hope and hoping that the conversation continues, and also hoping that it doesn't just fall off as quickly as some of the other instances in the past. Um, because we definitely need to continue this conversation, and some of the changes that we're seeing need to be long term, um, overall. So I'm definitely hopeful as well, and we can only hope and continue on in the fight. But it's great that more awareness is being built and people are more aware now. So to end, I just want to tell people how they can support and what they can do to either buy Remix Waffle Mix or any other way they can support. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So you can find Remix Waffle Mix at remixwaffles.com. That's kind of the primary home. You can also follow me on Instagram at Eat Remix.
Hmm.
Also on Facebook, same thing. And
Yeah.
I think, to me, my goal is not to have Remix in every house in America. It's for
Yep.
people to um, get back to cooking, getting back to eating food
Absolutely.
without additives and stuff. So if you love Remix, you want to, or you want to give it a try, or want to give it to someone, that's great. If you just want to talk about it, or talk about the idea of eating waffles and getting having a better experience, that's
Hmm.
great too.
Awesome. And I'll be sure to include your information in the bio for the videos. So thank you so much for taking the time and chatting with me today, Ryan. I really, really appreciate it. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Tina.
Have a great day.